Okay, so I'm between you and pizza and beers, I think. Oh no, just beers. We get pizza afterwards. But anyway, it's an uncomfortable spot to be in. I'll try and make it a little bit pain-free. But what I wanted to do is just to spend maybe 10, 15 minutes to give you a brief, kind of introduction to Kosli. I want to actually show you the product, because I think that's the most important part. We've done a lot of talking, but I'll go through just a few slides quickly to get some orientation. Yeah, so kind of what's interesting is what's happened in software over the last 20 years. Well, since I joined the industry, when we started, it was big iron, probably in the basement, run by an IT department, very slow changing, very kind of monolithic systems, very siloed organizations. And then kind of as we kind of coming through the world, we started to get to more kind of rack-based infrastructure, moving towards the cloud, microservices, functions as a service, Lambda. We've gone through this kind of whole journey, and we've got some customers that are really young fintechs, and they started, and they just dive right into the right-hand side of this, which is great. But we've also got other customers where it's right across this whole, for them, IT is this whole picture, and lots of it, right? You've got kind of all kinds of things from mainframes to WebSphere to all the way to the cloud. And what's interesting is even if you start over here on the right, you still have the same problem. In fact, you have the problem even more so, because what you have is a lot more change to deal with. And if change is your bottleneck, that's the problem. So the auditors are going to ask kind of whether it's first line, second line, third line, they all have the same question. And to be fair, they're pretty fair questions to ask. Do you even know what software you're running? Can you show me how it got there, how it's been qualified? It's nothing too challenging to figure out, but the problem is it's often quite hard to find the answer to these questions when you have to go look for it. And what that ends up doing to development teams in regulated infrastructure, like Ivan and Espen were saying, is you tend to create a lot of these things, inherited ITIL processes, essentially, that was how we did change management when we had a mainframe. These things are fine, but they have real-world consequences. So if you have a change advisory board, it's really hard to talk about empowering your teams, because you're basically taking their delivery life cycle out of them. They don't get to own end-to-end their process. And of course, a lot of the other things are delays and paperwork and so on, which really affect your company culture. And I was listening to a podcast on my way here today, and it was from someone who's in charge of training people that are entering the US Air Force. It was super interesting. And he said the #1 strategic risk the Air Force has is recruitment and retention. I was like, that's kind of interesting. It's one of their biggest costs is recruiting. Anytime they hire someone, it costs $100,000. So you want to, these are really important things. And again, if you're in a regulated industry, you're in a war for talent in your technology team. So you have to find ways around this. The other thing is that I think that we've all seen some of the same solutions as well. You have a place where you've got change advisory boards, approvals, release documents, and so on. There are other ways. People make emergency fixes. They don't actually start to put their systems into a proper process until it's ready for live, which is, you're missing an awful lot of your risk if the first blip on the radar is when it's about to land. There's a lot of issues with this. So I'm not going to talk too much about this, but like I said at the very beginning of this day, what I'm super happy about is we started this journey years ago in the company, talking about immutable attestations, controls as code, compliance, and all of these things. And now it's kind of crossed over into the mainstream. I mean, Investments Unlimited is fantastic, and John's got more books up his sleeve, as always. But there's another book coming out next year from IT Revolution as well, which I'm super excited to see is from the audit side. And it's all about kind of how do you get beyond agility? What does it mean to be an agile auditor? How do you get second line that actually is effective as a risk control mechanism, but also empowering the organization? And then, when we think back to the slide with all the different types of systems, in the end, what we're trying to do is go from a waterfall world to a world of continuous compliance. Because what that means is that the change management no longer is your bottleneck. You can release on demand, and you can have smaller, more frequent changes. One thing I'd like to sell as well from the stage a little bit is we have created an open source DevOps control framework, which is a lot of our customers, especially those new to the regulated framework, regulated markets, or they're going towards an ISO or a SOC 2 compliance certification, these kind of things, they know they want DevOps, they've already got DevOps, but they don't know how to write a process that the auditors would be happy with. So we created one, because we've been helping companies through this for years. This is available online. It's a GitHub repo. You can clone it, change the logo, delete the pages you don't like, add pages you want. But it's a very simple way, because in the end, what you need for whether it's your medical, financially regulated, SOC 2, ISO, you need to have a process. You need to actually follow the process, and then you need the proof that you follow the process when the auditors come. So this is kind of an interesting first step. So if you're looking for something like this, you can have a look. We do accept pull requests. Okay, so what is Kosli? Well, basically it's a tool to record everything that's happening in your DevOps after the commit, connect it all together. So these systems that are often very separated, your version control, your build, your test, your security scans, what's going on in your deployments and production, and then make it completely searchable, give you a live map for everything. So the things we've heard from our customers is that often there's a lot of tool sprawl. As software grows, as team grows, you've got different pipelines, often lots of different repos, different CI systems perhaps. You've got no record of how systems actually change. Even if you're doing GitOps, you don't really know when your systems are changing. You know when the definitions are changing, but how those get applied and what happens on the automation side is kind of difficult to figure out. Often, again, if I want to beat up on DevOps a little bit, the dev and the ops worlds, despite all this talk of DevOps for these years, they tend to be in different tools. Right? The developers are in GitHub. They've got pull requests. They've got their GitHub actions. Everything's there for them. But what are the IT people doing? Well, they've got Datadog, and they've got Argo CD, and they've got Grafana, and they've got their own world. And guess what? They just call themselves a platform team. But it's ops and dev all over again, right? And then the developers don't really know where their code is, like which feature is in which environment. Is this feature live yet? Did I break production? They're all good questions. And these things have got impact. Of course, there's kind of guesswork, frustration around incident response. You don't know what's happening across teams. The audit people don't know who to talk to about a system. You have a vertical bar in your monitoring stack. The SREs get involved. Which development team do they talk to? These are hard questions in a lot of places. And then, the bit that we're obviously very interested in is the uncertainty around audit and compliance. Do we really have control over everything? Do we really have documentation? Is there anything running in production we don't know about? It's a bit messy. So this is Kosli. I'm going to jump out and actually just show you it because it's a bit more fun. So is that big enough in the back? Yeah. Okay. So what is it essentially is kind of a bit different than even what's in Investments Unlimited, because we start with the end in mind, which is what's in prod. Like whatever else happens, you want to, like from a change management perspective, you need to know what's running at any given time. So the way we do it is we track environments inside Kosli. You can ship us information about what's running, and we kind of take the cryptographic shards of everything that's running. If it's a Kubernetes cluster, it's an ECS cluster, it's a Lambda, it's a raw server. Like for some of our customers, a deployment is Ansible logging into an IIS server, untarring a zip file into a directory. I mean, that's fine. Whatever it is, we'll figure out a way to track it. And here we can see for this environment, it's an ECS production namespace for CyberDojo. We have a lot of services running. So this is what's in production. Let's dig in a little bit. Creator seems to be the last thing that changed. So, okay, what is this thing? It's a service running. It has this SHA. It came from this Git commit. I can have a look at this. There's probably something, okay, some pipeline changes and a little bit of HTML. I can see that this artifact or commit is currently running in both the production namespace and the beta namespace. And I can see the evidence that's attested. So this is kind of where we get back to the automated governance, where you say your process has attestation. So I say, I have artifact binary provenance. For everything that's running, I know exactly what Git commit came from, where the build log is. You can add anything on top of that, like the SBOM. You can add test results, pull request information, and kind of just assert all of this stuff automatically. And that's quite interesting. If we go back to the environment, then once we have this story, we had another customer who was audited a few weeks ago, and they asked us, can you tell us, the auditor was asked, can you give us a list of all the changes to production in last year? And they had 80 microservices, and before they had Kosli, they would have to go around and look in all the different repos, the different pipelines, and see what was running and which branch was in which environment and so on. It was very manual. So their first audit took 3 months. What's quite interesting is that now it was a 3-day event for them. There was a lot of things that weren't in Kosli that had that required more kind of investigation by the auditors, but at least for like 90% of their landscape, they have a complete answer and they can just export it. The auditors wanted it as an Excel spreadsheet, and we're like, well, it's in Kosli. Like, yeah, but can we have it as, yeah, okay, so let's make it an Excel spreadsheet. So say, okay, download it as a CSV, and then you can have a complete record of every single change to this environment. Not a list of what you think changed or what's in tickets and ServiceNow, but actual changes to that system. Oh yeah, I never even thought about that. Do I have a spreadsheet program? So you can see, okay, we've got all this information and the SHAs, and the auditors can feel like there's at least some comfort about this, which is great. So, I mean, there's a lot of audit and compliance features. You've got the automated governance, and you've got a complete change history for how your systems change over time. And it's quite easy to set up, because for each environment, you just set up a reporter that ships us information, and if there's a change, we make a new snapshot. So it's kind of like version control. What's really powerful as well is that, okay, this is a compliance database, but it's also quite useful for developer feedback. I don't have the client installed, but I can show you a little bit what that looks like. So all the information that we have available in the command line too. So as I was showing you this kind of view in the website, which is what's in prod, well, we can see that at the command line too. So if you just want to say, okay, for this commit, where is it at? Was there an artifact produced? Is there a Docker image associated with it? Is it currently running anywhere? We have commands for all of these questions in the command line as well. And we're going to bring it to Slack, so you can start to get a daily digest of changes. You can get notified on certain services if you care about a downstream service changing, all these kind of things. All right, how am I doing for time? No. Okay, but then let's keep talking. No, I'm just kidding.